Affectionately known as Vi, pert and petite, Viola Dana was the quintessential silent screen star. For almost 20 years, Viola Dana was a major film actress, commencing a career where the industry began on the East Coast and later moving to Hollywood. She began acting professionally on the stage in the early years of this century with her sisters, Shirley Mason and Edna Flugraff. In 1910, she joined the Edison Company, where she came to the attention of casting director John Collins. By 1915, Collins was a director, and a year later, he and Viola were married. Sadly, John Collins died in the 1918 Spanish flu epidemic. From Edison, Viola Dana joined the Metro Company in 1916, and here she was to remain until 1924 as one of its 3 top stars. Among Viola's Metro features are Blue Jeans, Rouged Lips, and Revelation. In 1920, she became the first actress to portray an F. Scott Fitzgerald heroine on the screen in A Chorus Girl's Romance and The Offshore Pirate. From Metro, Viola moved to Paramount to star in Open All Night with Adolphe Menjou and her second husband, Lefty Flynn. She remained active as a major Hollywood star for the rest of the decade.
I started when I was about 5, 6 years old, and believe it or not, a lot of people do not remember the name of Stouches in Coney Island. Well, I danced there. I was up in my routine, but the people were flabbergasted at seeing a little gal out there with wooden shoes on doing taps and everything. So they started to throw money at me. Well, I forgot the routine. I started crawling under tables and gathering up the money for Mama. And you can imagine that sort of caused a riot. And of course, then I continued on there, and we used to, any place that we could be seen, my mother would have us there. That was the sort of the beginning of our career. And then we started to go into road shows, like Rip Van Winkle with Thomas Jefferson. Shirley played Little Meanie, and I played Little Heinrich. I always played boys with long curls. I don't know whether boys wore long curls then, but I did. And then Shirley played she was the original Little Hal in The Squaw Man with William Faversham. He was the first to do The Squaw Man. He was an Englishman. And I understudied her in that. And we found out that we lived very close to a place called the Edison Studio, which made, in those days, we thought of them as flickers. And my mother thought, well, gee, that would be great, for the summer. Occasionally, get something to do there. And so she brought us in, and I have a mental picture of the Edison studio. I can see it so well. And then when you walked in, there were there were benches, and people were sitting on the benches. I guess they were the people that were under contract, or uh, I don't know, probably waiting for it to be cast for something. And of course, in those days, we had mostly top lighting. The lights came from above, which was not very flattering, but being young, it didn't make any difference. But when you figure it out now, that top lighting can make a baby look like an old hag. But being as young as we were, it didn't, we weren't so terribly worried about our looks. And one thing led to another. We would go to on a road show in the wintertime, and in the summertime we would report at the Edison studio and say that we were at liberty to take anything that, do any of the kids' parts that came along. And in that way, and we also did a stock company in Union Hill, and that was where we got all our experience. When I played the poor little rich girl, Arthur Hopkins thought that the name Flugrath, which a lot of people can't seem to pronounce, which is very funny to me because you can say Macgrath very easily. Why not Flugrath? Well, he didn't think that would look too good in lights, and he was right. So they changed my name to Dana. I kept my first name, Viola Dana. And Dana is it's a little more euphonious, I think, Viola Dana, than Viola Flugrath. That would take many more electric lights to begin with. So I wanted to make sure I was going to be up in lights. Well, Johnny was a very sensitive man, and he would insert, and this is one of the things I loved about him too. He had me do little things that I can't explain the things, but little sensitive things that touched your heart. And this is what I think people saw in him in his work, that he would have been, had he not died at such an early age, he would have been one of the greats, because he could bring out in a woman all the sensitivity of a woman. And he was quiet. I never heard him yell. He never screamed or yelled or anything like that. If he had something to tell me about a scene, he would come in and say, "Now, I think so and so and so and so. If you just give it a little bit more." Well, we made quite a few, and it's a shame that some of these pictures have not been preserved, because it's hard to go back 50 years and tell the little things that I'm trying to convey to you, that you don't find in a lot of directors. Now, I've had, since Johnny has died, many directors, and a few of them have come close to doing the things that he would do, and the way he would do them, and I understood him so well. And if he'd say, "Now, in this scene, I want you to cry, and I want to see the tears roll down your face." Well, now, this is your emotions. It's not a spigot, that you turn on and they spout tears. You have to get into the scene and all that sort of thing. Well, it was always easy for me because of his way of telling me what the scene was about and the feeling I should have, and the tears and all that sort of thing. Well, we did quite a few of these darling, darling pictures that I've forgotten some of the titles even. But that is how I started to do comedy, because I ran dry of tears.
A brilliant comedian in her own right, Viola Dana also counted many comedians among her personal friends, notably Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle and Buster Keaton.
You know, I guess the first comic I ever met was Buster Keaton. You know, I love to laugh, and meeting all the comedians like Buster Keaton, was a big thrill for me, because I knew he had been a kid actor too, and my sister and brother-in-law brought him home one night for dinner, and he stayed for 3 years. We used to have a great old time, and with Roscoe and Buster and the comedians at that time, and I think I might have taken on a little of their personalities, because I afterwards, instead of being a tragedian and a dramatic actress, I became a comedian. Well, the Metro Studios, you could hardly call it a studio. It was, from what I understand, the Buster Keaton studio. He had worked there, and there were no lights or anything. It was all open, and we had a lot of time off because it was the wind was simply terrible. You'd put up a set, and along would come the wind and blow the set down. That meant the day was over. We had the day off. That was great. I didn't mind it one bit. It gave me a chance to look the place over. But that was the first studio. That was the old Metro studio. And then when I went back east and we returned, it was the same studio, but they had put a top on it. That was the only difference, and it had enlarged it a little bit.
Viola brought John Arnold along with her to Metro as her personal cameraman.
Well, Johnny Arnold was with us in the East too, and of course he was just part of our crew, and part of a very good part of the crew. Believe me, without Johnny, I would have looked like an old bag, I guess, and I was only about 17 years old then.
In 1928, Viola Dana came to Harry Cohen's Columbia Pictures, then a part of Poverty Row, but soon to become a major studio. Here she co-starred with Ralph Graves in That Certain Thing, Frank Capra's first film for the company.
My friends that I was going to make a picture with Harry Cohen over at Columbia, they said, "Oh gosh, Harry Cohen." I said, "Listen, I don't know what a lot of people turn their noses up on Harry." I said, I like Harry Cohen. I've known him for years and years, and I like him. I said, and he sings to me. You know, he used to be a singer at Coney Island, and he would sing out of the corner of his mouth, "Come to me, my melancholy baby." Well, I would get hysterical, but I wouldn't let him know I was laughing. But he was a nice guy as far as I was concerned, and of course Frank Capra. To work with him was just like working with an angel. He knew exactly what he wanted, and he knew how to explain to you what he wanted and how he would like to have it, you know. And you never had any trouble pleasing him because you knew exactly what he wanted. And if he wanted any changes, he'd say this way, a little bit that way. And well, of course, working with Frank Capra was like working with an angel. He was just a doll. Now, he didn't know me from Adam, actually, nor had I heard of Frank Capra, but I don't know, he didn't know my work or anything like that, because I was different in every picture. I changed my characters around so that I wouldn't become monotonous. And I said, I happen to know how it was explained to you about the girl in the picture. He said, how did you know? I said, well, Harry Cohn told me. I said, and made no bones about it. He said, I've got just the right girl for you. He said, when she walks, she's got the cutest little wiggle you've ever seen. And I said, I don't know what that has to do with acting ability, to have a wiggle. I didn't even know I had a wiggle. So when I saw Frank just recently at the luncheon that was given, I explained to him, I said, Frank, I don't know about the wiggle. I said, because if you remember, the first scene we made, the hero and I bumped into each other, and he gave me such a bump, he knocked me up against the building on my wiggle, right on my wiggle. I said, I've never wiggled since. And he was so cute about it. He said, come here and kiss me. Well, the social life, I didn't socialize very much. I remember Roscoe Arbuckle, as a matter of fact, took me to the opening of the Coconut Grove. And, of course, he was a marvelous dancer, wonderful dancer, just as light on his feet, and it was a joy to dance with him. But I didn't go out every night. I only went out on Saturday nights because I worked. How do you suppose I made those 104 pictures? I worked, and they were full-length pictures, and all of them starring vehicles. And it really started at Edison, too. So that I had worked, actually, for, I would say, 10 years practically steadily. I had to make that many pictures and full-length pictures. Gosh, I had to be on the job, and I changed the characterizations, because how many stories can you tell about a girl and a boy? Boy meets girl, how many? So you have to change yourself around differently. Well, when I appeared up in Rochester I got the Eastman Award, which I'm very proud of, because not many people get that. And I would talk to the people like I am talking to you now. And the last night I thought, well, we were getting real clubby, the audience and I said, the one girl yelled out at me, said, well, Miss Dana, do you have any, I was answering questions, said, do you have any regrets? I said, well, I thought, here I am, a white-haired woman. Gosh, I can tell the truth for once in my life. I said, well, yes, I do. She said, well, what is this? I said, well, those I said no to. And of course, it got a big laugh.